Yo guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to be talking about Neverness to Everness. So NTE comes out in a few days, and as I mentioned in my previous video, some elements don't interact at all with each other in NTE. So this means that planning out who you want when it comes to re-rolling and who you're going to be picking for your guaranteed S rank is going to be more important than ever before. So let's talk about it. In NTE, think of elements as characters that have unique reactions with each other, not really with the elements themselves. So in other games, you might apply a debuff, some kind of infliction for that element on the enemy. But in this game, it doesn't really work that way. It's just going to be the reaction of switching from one character to another, kind of like an intro and outro that you would see in Wuthering Waves. Now, the way that this actually works is that your active character has a cycle gauge, and that gauge will be filled up over time based on a few factors. You can just auto attack and slowly fill it up, for example. Another example would be to get a parry, and that will instantly fill the gauge. Using skills will also help fill the gauge, and some characters, like the main character, actually have a skill that instantly fills the gauge for you, allowing them to instantly swap out. So something that I was constantly doing when I was playing through the beta was I was using Mint and the MC a lot together because they fill their gauges very quickly and they can just kind of continuously swap back and forth. When the swap happens, that's actually when the Esper reaction will take place, and depending on the elements of those two Espers that are swapping, that will actually change what ends up happening. Now, there is a slight caveat to this because some of these elements reactions actually do leave a debuff, and then you can use some of those and kind of combine them to make a 3-element reaction. There are 2 of those, and we'll go over that in a little bit. For this video, we won't be going into the actual numbers behind the reaction, so trying to figure out which reaction does the most damage, for example. We'll go over that in another video once the game is actually launched. This is going to be just talking about the reactions in general, as well as why certain characters might want to be something that you take a look at when the game does launch. And hopefully it will give you information that you can use to kind of try and decide which characters or which team compositions you want to go for when the game does launch in a few days. All right, so over on ntegame.com, under the guides and combat section, they actually have information that I think will be really useful for you guys. Link in the description below because you'll probably want to see it at a future time, or even look at the videos yourself. So this is the different elements that we have access to for the different Espers, and this kind of gives you an idea that when you do these element reactions, you can do them in either rotation. So the first one we want to go over is going to be Blossom. So this is going to be Cosmic and Anima. This is the one that I'm looking to maybe make a lot of use of because I really like playing both Mint and the MC, and Mint being an Anima and the MC being Cosmos. Plus, as I said earlier, the MC has the ability to cycle much faster than most characters because their skill automatically fills their cycle gauge. Blossom just spawns a pea shooter that attacks targets dealing AoE damage, so more damage, which is potentially going to be a good option for us. Again, the numbers we'll have to look at behind the scenes when we get more information, but the game's not quite out yet, so it wouldn't really make sense to go over those numbers too much now. Hex is going to be Anima and Incantation, triggers extra unison damage based on recent elemental damage taken. I think this could potentially be a good one. However, I didn't really like any of the incantation characters that I saw that are available right away, so that's probably not going to be one that I look at personally. I'm more sticking with Anima and Cosmos. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Scorch, this is going to be incantation and chaos, so inflicts damage over time for 15 seconds, so could be very, very valuable. Again, it probably is going to come down more to what that actual damage multiplier is. Nova is going to be chaos and psyche. Marks a target causing a large burst of cognito damage after 5 seconds. So this is, I think, again, is probably going to be coming down to what those damage multipliers are. And I do think that there could be some use for this in AoE scenarios. Stain is Psyche and Lakshana. And now I think this one has some potential. I think this could potentially be the strongest reaction, but we'll have to ultimately wait and see. So the target takes 50% more Psyche and Lakshana damage for 12 seconds. So depending on how fast you could actually do this, this could basically just be a 50% buff to your damage if you just have a group of just made up of these types. So that could be massive when it comes to actually doing your team composition, but there weren't a lot of characters that I really loved for this combination. But in particular, we do have the 2 5-stars from the standard banner, which could be quite interesting. And again, we'll talk about that more in a little bit. And then we have Remora. So Lakshana plus Cosmos. So marks a target slowing their movement and attack speed. Now that one in particular doesn't really sound that interesting. However, the caveat is this is part of a 3-part reaction as well. Now, when it comes to trio reactions, so these are going to be 2 separate duo reactions that you have to do in succession with each other. So for example, Charge is activated when Blossom hits a target marked by Remora, grants the active character ultimate energy per hit. Now this is something that I used a lot in the beta. It happened to work really well with the team composition that I liked playing at first. So in order to do that effect, what I was doing was I had Mint, I had Zero, the MC, and I had Hathor. Now, really, this pivots more around Zero than anything else. The other 2 were kind of extraneous. For example, you could use Hathor into Zero and then use Zero into Mint. And again, that will be pretty quick as well. It just has more to do with the fact that Zero being able to instantly fill their gauge and move on to the next reaction is a big key component of this. Now, for the other element, Discord, you need Nova and Scorch simultaneously, which reduces a percentage of the target's break meter. So this could be important if you need to break bosses later on. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to do Nova, which is Chaos and Psyche, which marks a target for that big AoE damage of Cognito damage. And then Scorch, so the damage over time effect inflicted by incantation and chaos. This one's gonna be a little bit harder because I feel like you don't really have any characters that can really pivot in the same way. So where Zero could be in the middle of your double reactions, you don't really have a chaos character that can be in the middle of both. Right now, Daffodil is the only chaos character, and from what I know of the character, she doesn't have the ability to instantly cycle in the same way Zero does. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't do this setup. It just might take a little bit longer than getting Charge setup, right? And if you're getting 2 damage boosts from both Scorch and Nova, it might not be that big of a loss. So again, we have to wait to figure out more about like theory crafting stuff from numbers once we actually get the game. But in terms of how fluid it will be getting this reaction out, Discord's gonna be a bit harder to do than Charge. If the window for this is really long and you do have time to get 2 characters fully cycled in, you could still make use of it for sure. Okay, let's put it all together now. What should we kind of be looking for when it comes to building a team and the different elemental reactions? There's a couple of caveats to that. So a couple of things here first. I always recommend that everyone plays based on what's fun. What character you're interested in, for example, I think is going to be more important in NTE than anything else, because you're going to be inviting them to live with you and spending time with them in the game and stuff like that. And so if you're not interested in the character and you pick them purely based on strength, then it's going to be a bit more boring. Another thing that I want to mention too is a few outliers that we do know of. So Chiz is going to be a really big powerhouse for people who do care specifically about power. Now we do get access to all of her duplicates, her signature weapon, and I believe even her signature weapons duplicates. So she's going to be fully built out the gate with no additional investment needed, which is insane that they gave us right off the bat, and also very, very cool. So a lot of people are going to probably say that she's probably one of the strongest characters in the game. And again, she's completely obtainable in that state, maxed out, free to play. We also know that Heinel is also going to be very, very strong. A lot of people are calling her the Bennett of NTE, meaning that she's a very, very strong buffer, even as only a 4-star character. So I think a lot of people are going to default to working with these 2 characters in particular. There's another thing we need to consider as well, is that Ji Yuan, while classified as a damage dealer, in this game, as I said in my previous video, duplicates work in a very interesting way, and one duplicate you can pick which passive you want. And if we take a look at Ji Yuan, if we go all the way down to her support skills and passives and then look down here, what you'll see is that technically her A2, although remember you can pick this with only one duplicate, increases the damage ratio by 100% and restores HP to the entire team equal to 20% of the damage accumulated by Rose Pact whenever Pact settlement is triggered. So she has the ability to heal the whole team, and right now that's valued very, very highly. I feel like I can't actually state this enough. This is an extremely valuable passive to get because there frankly just aren't that many heals that you can even get in the game, period. During my time in the beta, that was the one thing that I came across that was the biggest issue. And Fadia, the 5-star on the standard banner, has the ability to take damage from your teammates and basically transfer it to herself. A caveat is that Fadia, the way that she works is she enhances the way that Nova works for your team. So if you're on a team that is going to use Nova, then she can kind of be used as a healer that gives HP based off of her HP. It's just more complicated than just straight up healing, right? Because you do need to use the Nova reaction. So healing in this game seems to be more unique than actually just like damage distribution or defenses. And there is a difference, right? Eventually, if you're in a long fight, you would get whittled down no matter how defensive you are. In the Chinese version of the game, this is kind of more or less what the tier list is looking like for the different roles. So a lot of people are probably going to be going for Ji-Yuan as their healer because she does have the ability to kind of double dip and be the DPS healer, and also she's the hottest character on the standard banner. So when it comes to me personally, ideally, I'm going to be trying to reroll for a Ji-Yuan, and then if I do get one, then I can use a selector or whatever to try and get a second one, or maybe even just try and get just 2 in general off the reroll. It depends on how much you want to reroll, right? But personally, I really liked the interaction between Mint and Zero, and that was something that I just really liked. Granted, a lot of that might just be the fact that Zero is such a fast cycler in and of it herself, so I might end up changing this a little bit, but right now I'm kind of looking at these 3 as my main staple. This gives me access to a healer in Ji-Yuan, and then a main damage healer from Mint, and then, I mean, honestly, sub damage healer as Ji-Yuan, and then Zero to also be a sub damage healer and also additional healer because Zero also works as a healer as well. In the future, I would maybe be looking to go for Hotori because I really like her as a character. Those are kind of the characters that I'm the most interested in right now. Hawthorne might be an interesting pickup depending on how things go, because then I would have access to charge if I was to switch out Mint, for example, in the future, if I wanted to just use Ji-Yuan as my damage dealer, for example. But I do think right now these are my main 3 I'm going for, and I'm going to try and fill in either a buffer or a defender later on depending on how things work. Another option might be that I just go with Hawthorne, Mint, Zero, and Ji-Yuan, and that's kind of more or less what I did do in the beta. That was my favorite team composition that I played, and it worked really well. But again, I would really encourage you guys to pick characters that you're actually interested in playing, or that you're interested in spending time in the world, because as I said in my previous video, NTE is more than just a combat game. There's so much more going on, and there's so many other things, like I said, housing and living with the waifus and the husbandos and stuff. And if you're not picking characters you're interested in, then I think you're gonna really miss out on some of the coolest parts of NTE that really just make it very unique. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you guys learned something. If you guys liked the video, like the video down below. If you guys want to talk about anything or have any other comments or thoughts on like which characters to pick, feel free to drop those down below in the comments as well. I'm always happy to have discussions with you guys and stuff down there. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content like this and other NTE stuff in the future. Really looking forward to launch, and I'm gonna try and stream actually on launch too. We'll have to wait and see, but I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.